Hey guys, it's Pete from Beef Anxiety here. Welcome in today's episode. I appreciate y'all being here so much. Let's talk about a few things real quick. The Pete vs. Anxiety Team Anxiety Facebook group. Are you a part of it? You're not? What are you waiting for? The link's down here in the description down below, or go to Facebook and search Pete vs. Anxiety. Then look for the Team Anxiety Team page and join it today. Why not? You can join and help. It'll be great. Yeah, like right now. Hurry up. Stop what you're doing, pause this video, go do it right now. But anyways, let's also talk about the Pete vs. Anxiety YouTube page. If you're here right now, you're probably following it most likely. If not, head on over there, subscribe, be sure to like and comment on the videos and let me know, because all that stuff really helps, guys. I really appreciate it. And help me break the stigma that mental health is talked about enough. But anyways, guys, let's get in today's episode. I'll have a great one. Thank you so much again. And as I always say, don't ask how your day is. Ask how your mental health is today.
Guys, welcome to the exciting episode of Pete vs. Anxiety here on the Oracle Talk Radio Network. My guest today is a U.S. Navy veteran, speaker, podcaster, modern-day preacher who's turning trauma into transformation. He hosts the Couple O Nukes podcast. Please welcome in the one, the only MrWhiskey.
Thank you. Yeah. Glad to be here. And of course, always starting with gratitude first. I appreciate you hosting not just me, but the platform you have in general, having conversations like these that not everyone always wants to tune in. And I appreciate everyone who is tuning in and, helping, whether this affects you personally or you just want to have knowledge to help others. I appreciate that.
Right, man. I agree. So, MrWhiskey, tell us a little bit about yourself, man. You're a U.S. Navy veteran, right?
Yes, sir.
What did you do in the Navy exactly? Were you infantry or something like? I'm not really sure how the Navy breaks down, so I apologize if I don't really know what.
You're good. Yeah. So I was an electrician's mate nuclear operator. So I worked with a lot of people mistake that for weaponry. In fact, what they call it shorthand is nuke. That's where a couple of nukes come from. It means a bunch of Navy sailors who do nuclear operations sitting down together. That was kind of where the show started, the idea for it. Right. So I was a U.S. Navy nuclear operator, specifically electrician's mate. So more focused on the electrical side, providing all the power for the submarine or aircraft carrier via reactor operations safely, work with steam demand pipes, valves, gauges, thermometers, monitors, everything you can name, computers. Right. There's a whole lot that goes into it. A lot about a lot. It's usually like, a lot about a little or a little about a lot. A lot about a lot, because there's also machinist mate, nuclear operators, electronics technicians, chemists, right? But we all kind of can do each other jobs to a degree. There's some more specific niche stuff that we don't get into always, but for the most part, you're a mechanic, an electrician, a chemist, all in one, plus a whole bunch of computer stuff, Navy stuff, firefighter, casualty combat care on top of it, damage control. So it's a one packed resume.
Yeah. Sounds like it, man. So how did you start Couple Nukes? Was it just like one day you're like, listen, I got a lot to share and I'm just going to put it out there? Because, a lot of people that start podcasts, I think it's always interesting to hear how their story started.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of people start podcasts, very few continue them. As you know, being a Podmatch member, I'm sure you check out the monthly reports. Only about 4% of us even make it to 100 episodes. In less than half make it to 8 or 10 episodes. So
right,
you and I already well past that threshold. And so a lot of people will say, let's start a podcast, and they'll even record a couple episodes and then trail off. And for me, it started with I was traveling within the Liberty radius of where we were allowed to travel for the military, about 16 hours a weekend driving to see my then fiance at the time, going to see her, and eventually music, 16 hours plus a weekend, 2-3 times a month. There's only so many songs and so many music, so much music that I can listen to. So I said I need something else. And I remember that there was an audio only form of quote audio only YouTube called podcasting. And so I looked into that. Some YouTubers I used to watch back in the day had a podcast. I started listening to those, looking into that, researching different ones. Found a comedy one I really liked of a young liberal Los Angeles man and his old Southern East Coast grandfather, very different personalities. And they had some amazing conversations. And I was like, you know what? Nuclear operators. So at the time, only about 5 to 8% of Americans qualified to join the Navy. And then of that 5 to 8%, only about 1% become nuclear operators. Of that 1% that join and go through the nuclear program, only between 1 and 5% of those people then make it out to the fleet. And so you get a very small group of very identical people in terms of intelligence, social skills. We call it the nuke spectrum, from robot to weirdo. There's very unique people. We've seen it historically. The smarter you are, the stranger you are.
Well, listen,
And
strange is great, man. Listen, that's what makes I
yeah.
think the most interesting people are the strangest people. You know what I'm saying?
Oh
Like,
yeah.
and so I know that your show basically covers everything. We cover suicide,
Yeah.
addiction, faith, all that kind of stuff, man. Is that the original plan? Was just like, hey, I'm just going to raw dog
Not at
these
all.
conversations, or
Yeah, so nukes have a term called nuking it out, and that's overthinking, focusing on very minute technical points, a lot of logical fallacies, stuff like that, and a lot of ego involved. See, nukes, I'm not really a nuke personality per se. I'm very humble.
yeah,
A lot of them are very egotistical. A lot of them are like, I'm the best of the best of the best, and rightly so. But I always put forth humility, and some of them are just beyond reason. But those conversations were also very comical, especially to a non-nuke individual. And I said, well, let's start a podcast. Look at us, a couple of nukes having this conversation. We were discussing a meme. Long story short, it was about, would you make this decision? You get millions of dollars in immortality and invulnerability. And the only thing that can kill you is a snail, and it spends its life hunting you down. It's also immortal. And we were nuking it out, getting into biological theories of DNA and evolution and solar cosmic rays and all kinds of stuff, right? Doing what nukes do. And that was where I was like, we need to start a podcast. No
yeah,
nuke was on board with it, unfortunately, for this comedy, sometimes life advice show, specifically a comedy. And I shortly left the military after that point, and hunting down the naval nuclear community post-military wasn't something I really wanted to do. And I ended up pivoting to military mental health. And I quickly became boxed into this military man who I never was.
yeah,
When I was 17, my parents made me go in. Never been a military man. And I probably will never will be one. I'm a man who was in the military. I am patriotic. I do love this country. I do have great respect and honor for the people I served with and the people who are out there serving. But the lifestyle and the very hoorah gun ho spirit, that wasn't me. It was at
yeah.
one point. The military ruined that, and then that's a conversation on its own, how they destroyed my Navy spirit, because I was ready for the 20 plus years. I was ready for 30 years, but they ruined that.
Yeah.
And so I ended up being like, I'm not the military guy. My show is not a military show. It's supposed to be for everyone. It's a lot of veterans and first responders, but a lot of their stories and advice are practical for everyone. And so I ended up pivoting out and rebranding to make it known that my show was for everyone's mental health, everyone's, anxiety, depression, suicide, and addiction. Those are higher in the military, don't get me wrong,
Yeah.
but they happen civilian side too, as you and your listeners know more than anyone. And so I slowly branched out, and I've thought about renaming the show, but I am big in origins. It's where I started. It's what it is, and I'm going to keep it.
I
It's
think
not
you
the
should keep
best for SEO. My podcast is one of the highest ranked under couples and relationships because the word couple. A lot of people find my show looking how to have a better relationship, which we do
but
cover. But yeah, I'm
the
not.
reason I'm laughing though is because Dr. Lee and I were talking about that too. She was like, I don't know, they don't know what to do with me right now because she falls into so many different categories, of things.
Right.
And I was like, listen, Dr. Lee, I'm like, you just got to go for it. Just anything at this point, just go for it. I mean, like you made it, what do you have, 27 episodes now at least, and it's so far, people are listening. Obviously, I mean, I think it was interesting. I enjoyed the conversation. I thought it was hilarious when I run into people that've been on other shows because I go listen
Yeah.
to see what kind of conversation you guys have, and I try to stay away from that because I don't want to like try and keep the boring conversation. I don't want to keep replicating the same conversation. So me and her were having some fun this morning. She was calling me out a little bit on some things, and I felt a little, put on the spotlight. But I do want to touch on suicide in the military. Do you know what the stats are though for that?
Yeah, so they vary day to day, year to year.
Just on average,
The average number based on what mainstream media puts forward, social media, and then of course veteran guests on my show who specialize in this stuff.
yeah.
It's between 22 and 44 a day.
Jesus.
So even if you look at that minimum number, 22 a day is the main one put forward. That's a lot of veteran suicides each day. I know
That's way too many,
about
man.
2 years
Honestly.
ago, maybe a year and a half ago, a guest shared that when women veteran suicide by firearms had gone up like 44%, and we were seeing a transition from silent suicide types, which are commonly what women do over firearms, to more violent firearms rather than pills or knives. So seeing shifts in that, seeing obviously the ship I was on was under investigation for setting a record for over 13 suicides in a year, 3 in a week. We had a murder following on top of that, military on military. There was recently another military on military murder in the area where I was stationed in Virginia as well. And the base I was at had about 1 to 3 a month as far as attempts and completions. And there's some other bases that I haven't been to where I've spoken to some of their personnel where they also have high suicide rates. Again, not really spoken about, not all published. Really. It's kind of a if you know kind of situation. And there's definitely been some backlash over that as well.
Yeah, because nobody wants to talk about the fact it's happening because it's such a touchy subject. Do you know what mental health conditions they're dealing with? Like PTSD obviously would be one of them, I'm for sure. But is there any other ones? Do you have any idea what they're dealing with that's causing them to feel
when
that
you
way?
look at it, a majority of them are non-combat related suicides. Most of them, like all the ones on my ship, were in port in America. And I remember one of the sailors expressed to me the hardest part of this was that he was crying, was his best friend who committed suicide. He goes, "Mr. Whiskey, this is home base. This was supposed to be the time of our lives. We're not even deployed yet. We are in America. We are in Virginia. We're supposed to be going to the bars, drinking, skateboarding, having a good time. And we're losing more people here at home port than overseas." And I remember, I'm not sure. Have you ever recorded with Scott DeLuzio?
No, I need to apparently because there's some information I need to talk about because I'm interested.
He's on Podmatch. He hosts the Drive On podcast for veterans and military mental health, and I've been on his show and he on
mine.
Yeah,
I'll have to reach out to him then. Let him know Mr. Whiskey said I should meet up with you.
Yeah,
definitely, man. That's cool.
He shared a story about how the suicides I discussed. My suicides happened before deployment. His happened afterward. A year, 2 years, sometimes years after they had made it through the combat zone. They had made it through. And the people who made it through, some of them ended up taking their own life. So it's a lot of things. I've been asked on a lot of shows, like, what are some common factors? And you look at it and it's not the people, it's the environment, because you look at it, it's black, white, Hispanic, chief, petty officer, all different ranks, all different genders and races, married with kids, has a wife, has a husband, has no partner, has dogs. You can't pinpoint any specific thing as far as the people. You have to look at their environments and the factors. And we've talked on my show, there are a lot of contributing stressors and unnecessary factors that cause depression, addiction, suicide, and stress in the military, anxiety as well, that definitely could be reformed very easily or need to be reformed.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it was very eye-opening in the first episode I ever did on this show. I had a military vet of 22 years come on here, and he told us live that when he went over, he was okay. He got in a combat situation, Humvee flipped over, all this crazy, action movie type story he's telling you. But this is this guy living through it. He's like, when I came to, I had to lie to everybody basically and tell them I was okay because I'm the commanding officer. I don't want people to know something's wrong with me. But he knew something was wrong because he suffered a TMI at that point. So when he got back, though, the fucked up thing was, and the thing that really just got me going, what the hell is that? He said when he did a psychological review when he came back, they told him that he was okay. And he's like, wait. Did you look at the test now or did you look at my results before I left? And the person he said he talked to said, oh, we looked at the results before you left. You're fine. And it's like, wait a minute. I'm having a problem. I'm telling you there's an issue. This guy is dealing with these issues so bad that he can't go to the store, pick up a loaf of bread or whatever, and come back. And he's struggling just to make it through a day, and it's sad because this is our guy. He's over there doing keeping us free and everything else. And this is how you treat him. Like you're not fixing the problem. There's something wrong with the poor guy. He's just been through a traumatic event, all this other stuff, has a TMI, all this kind of stuff. And then you're trying to brush it off like nothing's wrong. It's like, come on now. Like, what the hell is that shit? Like this poor guy is suffering and you're telling him he's okay when clearly he knows he's not okay. And he's telling you he's not okay. But then you're trying to lie to his face and go, oh, no, you're fine. Where am I fine? You know what I mean? Like, it was hard to listen to, man. Like, when I first started these conversations and like I was telling you off air, we had the guy that came on at the beginning of the year. He was talking about suicidal ideation. He was talking about the situation that morning of the recording. he had talked about taking his own life and he was describing it to everybody. And he was like, "Hey, Pete, can I tell you something?" And just started going into this conversation. I was like, "Yeah, man, what's up?" And he just started telling me. And it was the same thing. My friend committed suicide a few months prior, and he was still shook up about it and things like that. He was just like, he's very shaken up about it. You can tell something was bothering him at first when we started talking. Like, and I'm really good at reading a lot of body language when it comes to that type of thing. You could tell like somebody seems a little off edge or something. And then he went into the conversation. And I'm telling you, when I tell you people freaked out, dude, I had like 14, 15 people right after that interview go, "Oh my God, is he okay?" Which is funny because it's like, yes, he's okay. But like a lot of you out there don't realize that when you're talking about it, at least he's talking about it, one, because he's a man. We don't talk about that shit, especially with it being Men's Mental Health Month, as we touch that subject right there, is that we don't talk about it. 80% of the suicides alone are men. They don't talk about these things because we're always told, "Oh, you're not supposed to talk about your feelings. Your feelings don't matter." Or you show emotions and, "Oh, you're such a wuss," or "You're a bitch," or "You're," all these other things you can call them derogatory. And I think it's sick. And I was talking to Whiskey a little bit. We're going to get into this subject right now. These videos that are going around. I don't know if you've seen any of them, but there's several out there where they're talking about making fun of men's mental health. The one in particular I do remember seeing a lot is the girl that's like, I can't think of what the song is, just like having a party in the background, just throwing her hands in there, going all excited and things like it. Says that when they say pause for silence for men's mental health, this is what she's doing back there. She's making a bunch of noise. Okay. So the story had come out that apparently her own family members are coming out saying that they're so sorry that she posted that video, not taking responsibility for anything she said, man. Have you seen these videos?
So I haven't, the only reason I knew it was Men's Mental Health Month because a lot of people don't post about it, but one of my favorite musicians, and I really want to collaborate with him one day, so I'm pursuing music. He has a lot of men's mental health songs. His name is Dax. He's a recording artist, and he has a song called "To Be a Man," Lonely Dirt Road, and so he's been posting a clip every day from his songs that talk about men's mental health, and he talks a lot about some of the things you mentioned there. And my thing is, one, I don't think we should have any of these months dedicated to any of these topics in that sense. I think it creates more division and isolation. I think that, again, I hate to be one of those people who say it needs to be talked about every day, but that's the truth. I think dedicating these months, but if we do have these months dedicated, one, there's only so many months in the year, and people get mad if things overlap, but that's just how it is. That's number one. You have to respect it, even if you don't support it. If that's what's put out, you have to respect it, especially something like that. And I think that those kinds of videos only prove our point as men further about like the treatment we get. Whereas, could you imagine if a man had done something like that to the equivalent of if there was a women's mental health month or on a holiday for a certain race or whatever it may be, the reaction would be so different. But I
No,
think
agree.
I think it's it's, you also have to look at the age group, because I'm sure it was a younger woman, because you look at it's mostly young women who, my issue is what I've noticed a lot in Gen Z and Gen Alpha is a lot of just hatred towards men, not equality, not, unification, but hatred and division. And so I think it also depends on the age group. And if you look at who's on social media posting that kind of stuff, it's a lot of younger women in their 20s, maybe 30s, but more like their late teens and 20s who are posting that stuff on social media.
Yeah, no, I think the one I'm thinking of, she looked like she's maybe in her 30s a little bit, but you're right. There are some younger girls that are posting videos like that, and it's a lot of times it's because this is the shit they're seeing and people are posting, and that's the scary part about when these people get on here and start influencing these people and start telling them all
Mhm.
these things, and it's just like, oh my, it's like stop, like be real about these things. I agree with you. I don't think there should be a month dedicated to it. I think it should be a conversation that's had more often, though. I do think that we
Yeah.
don't talk about it enough. And I think as men, it's hard for us to discuss it for some people because a lot of these ladies out there feel like, oh, that makes you weaker. But and my thought process though is this: like, doesn't that make you more of an alpha male? The fact that you could be in tune with your feelings and still, kind of be, everything else on top of that. And, am I not wrong? Am I wrong for thinking that? You know what I'm saying? Like I know they say the alpha male is supposed to be like the top dog kind of thing, but what if the top dog was more in tune to his feelings and everything else? He was more well rounded. I think that would make you more of an alpha male, honestly, because you're in tune with everything. It wouldn't, I don't think it subtract like a lot of people want it to be. But to me, it's just like, I just don't get it. It's like, I don't understand why we have to just hate on things. It's like, you don't see them
Right.
out there bashing Pride Month, and it's, everybody celebrating, all that stuff in the community and things like that too. And it's just like, it's just, I think it's just a new reason for people to hate on each other for no reason. I feel like the younger generation are getting taught all this stuff. They're getting fed all these things, and they see all this stuff as early as 4. They're noticing all these things, and they understand what's going on somewhat to a point. Not a lot, but they do watch a lot of the stuff we do. So a lot of that could be a product of their environment. Then you added the internet now, because back in the 90s, you didn't have the internet as much. AOL was the only thing really access to the internet. You didn't have Facebook. MySpace, I think, was the next really big thing that came out afterwards. And that was like your first introduction to those
Right.
social media type things. But if you think of it now with social media and all these things out there, it's like all these people are posting these things, and then it's like a lot of them are sticking their hands in and
Mhm.
going, well, I'm supposed to police these kind of things. Well, yeah, you don't want them out there saying hate speech, because obviously that's not going to go well. You're not going to let them keep posting like all these crazy comments about telling people to go kill themselves and things like that. And it happens a lot more than people realize. Even video games are really bad now, man. Like back in the 90s, we used to play Call of Duty all the time. Dude, the things that got said in that Call of Duty lobby, holy crap, dude. We all would be banned today, bro. Like our
Right.
accounts would all be gone. You know what
Right.
I'm saying? Like I think it's just scary, man. Like I don't know why everybody's so scared to have the conversation.
Yeah, I got a couple of things to say to that.
Yeah,
So,
go ahead.
well, like you said, there's a lot of hate being spread around, and it's just very perpetuating. I think another thing too is I understand. There are plenty of men that I hate who are evil, wicked men, but I don't project them onto all men. Same with
Yeah.
women. I've encountered some evil women. I don't project them onto all women. So I think a lot of these young women take one man or two men that they know in their life or their friend's life, and then they apply it to all men. And I had a great conversation the other day on my show about preventing repeat sexual offenders with Castillo. And what we talked about was, a lot of fathers are raising their daughters like, hey, you're not allowed to date, all men are evil. She said we need to have the conversation, not that there's good men and bad men, but that good men are capable of bad and bad men are capable of good. And that I've been thinking about that since she said that. That's right. And then she said, listen, if you have your father and your mother, they're telling you you're not allowed to date, men are dangerous, or the father says, I know what men are capable of, then at what point does she think that men are good?
Yeah.
Because all she's
Yeah.
hearing is men are bad, men are bad, men are bad. Be cautious, be cautious. So I think there's parenting lessons there as well as just in general. But what I want to say is for me, it all comes down to we exist in a fallen world and there's no biblical foundation, right? So we talk about what is valuable in a man. If you go to the Bible, which most people haven't read and aren't being, raised with, the Bible says, let's look first at what you mentioned. What do women want in a man? What do men value in our society? A lot of financial assets, house, car, money. Then the flesh, how do you perform sexually? What do you look like? How attractive are you?
Hmm.
Specifically, your manhood size and your height. Specifically, those two things are put out most. And then your job, your career, your education, all that stuff, right? Then you look at what does the Bible put forward? Well, you can look at Old Testament standards, and then you can also look at New Testament standards, in which case Jesus Christ, right? And he was a man in tune with his emotions. He still struggled with all of the things that humans do, but he was a morally righteous, perfect man, and he was in tune with his emotions, and he's considered the ideal man in accordance to the New Testament. Look at the Old Testament, and you follow the laws, still same kind of thing. You didn't have that in a lot of the kings that failed because they violated Deuteronomy 17, 17, 17, 18. They bred for themselves many horses. They had for themselves many wives. They hoarded great treasures for themselves, right? Look at King Solomon was considered the most valuable man by God at first after David because he asked for wisdom and it greatly pleased the Lord. Then you see his downfall. All these wives, gluttony, money, horses, everything in Deuteronomy violated, right? You look at David's downfall was also of the world. Why did he go after Bathsheba? Not because she was a morally righteous woman or a wife of noble character more fine than rubies, it was because he saw her bathing on a rooftop, and it was that physical attraction, right? So if you look at the standards, people aren't being raised to seek a man in accordance to those godly standards, which, regardless of whether you're religious or not, those traits that the Bible puts forward of what makes a good man and a good woman are great traits. They're morally righteous traits. People aren't seeing that. They're being fed this continuous loop of the worldly things, of money and of physical pleasure. And so I think that's one of the biggest issues, is that foundation is not there. You have people perpetuating it. And you have a lot of people saying, no, we don't care about that. But then you go on social media, that's all that's being put forward. You see it on, even in satire, it's still perpetuating that idea. And then, of course, you've got a lot of men and women who claim to be godly people, and then they're not. And then they ruin the whole idea of, well, a man or woman according to the biblical standard isn't good either. It's just as bad. But unfortunately, that's because people don't accurately represent the Bible or God. People are very flawed. I've met plenty of women who I really thought was that wife of noble character, more rare than fine rubies. And then it turns out actually they're committing crimes and twisting the Bible to justify it, So I have been fooled myself, and I get it. And like I said, I try to do a lot of preaching, modern day stuff with the faith, and I'm not the perfect guy. And shoot, if you looked at my past relationships, you definitely wouldn't think that. And that was prior to my walk with God as strong as it is now. But I think that's one of the issues. But again, you look at, it's that foundation of what is social media putting forward, mainstream media, and a lot of men are finding their value is only in sex, money, or power. That's what we talked about in the episode on rape and sexual assault prevention. It's more about power than lust most of the time, especially within relationships. And that's because a lot of men or demean. And you and I could get into the conversation. Even I've had some episodes on it. I was bullied my whole life for being skinny. If I was basically told I wasn't a man because I was lightweight. That all my value was based on my body weight. I had a hypermetabolism, right? That's how I grew up. I've filled out a little bit now, and that's part of the thing too. Is I experienced my own journey that I was skinny and socially awkward and all this and that. And nowadays I can talk to any woman pretty much because I have everything filled out. But in between me now and then, before I got the social skills and talking and all that, the only thing that changed was I started to fill out, work out, and that automatically attracted more women. And to me, that's sickening that women who wouldn't talk to me then because of the social awkwardness and all of that would at least talk to me. Well, at least once he's muscular, we can get over the social awkwardness.
Yeah.
Now that I have both, it's pretty set. But even when at one point where I lost weight and I was back down to being skinny and underweight, but had the social skills, well, it didn't matter as much. I've been rejected multiple times for saying, I love you and everything about you, but I wish you were taller. And I want a man who is taller than me. And I watch a lot of dating shows where the number one factor on those dating shows, which they're kind of shallow shows to begin with, but
I agree. I love those shows though.
And I had a guy who kind of blew up on the women about the height. He's like, this is just an excuse, if anything.
Yeah.
But I want to pass it back over to you.
No, man, listen, I agree with everything you're saying. First off, I got to comment a few things. I was bullied too. So I know how you feel, man. Right there, we already connect on that one because I know what it's like. I was always weird. I was always awkward. I was a real new kid. Okay. And I'm going to tell you something I've never told anybody here. I feel like I could tell you this and you'd understand this. So I got bullied so bad that they all started going and telling people I had a hit list in my locker. So people were looking at me weird the whole time, like really fucking weird. Like, it was just like, it was that bad. Like I kept getting random people talking to me because I got one guy was just picking on me and I responded with something. I don't remember exactly what I said to him, but I know it was something that was not appropriate to say back, unfortunately. And I think it had to do with the kid's mom. And it turned out his mom was dead or something, and I fucked up there and realized I fucked up, and I told them I was sorry. But then they started going and telling people that I was the kid with the hit list in my locker, So I kept getting these weird looks all the time. People are passing the hall. Mind you, I went to a really small school, so that word travels fast. Like we had When I
Yeah.
graduated, we had like 300 kids in our class. Just to give you an idea of how many people were in there, like 315 at most, you know. So we were relatively small, in the middle of nowhere, you know, basically nothing around us for like 15, 20 miles. So, you know, word travels quick of just shit going on. So I got bullied as a kid a lot of times. And it was horrible, you know, and like
Mm.
there's days I'd go home, I'd be so ready just to end it all because it was just that bad, you know. And no one knew it. Nobody knew the internal struggles I had because I didn't talk to my friends about these kind of things. I didn't know what to tell them. Like, hey, listen, I'm thinking about killing myself. You know, like they're not gonna know what to say. They're gonna look. They're gonna think it's a joke. Or I'd make jokes like, "Man, I just rather kill myself" or something. You know, those things that you do,
Right.
those signs that you're trying to tell people you need help, and they're just not getting it. You know, and it's just like it's crazy though because like I couldn't talk to girls at all either. Now I could talk to anybody. Spent some time waiting tables early on when in my 20s. And I could have a conversation with anybody now, you know, and I've had bad
Mm.
relationships too. Trust me. I have a horrible relationship with my kids. In fact, you know, I didn't deal with my mental health issues until I'm almost 40 now, until now. And a lot of things I dealt with, I didn't just kept pushing them off. So it didn't help the situation. What really didn't help is the 15 years I spent with a narcissistic ex, man. And
Mm.
it was
Yeah.
horrible, man. Like, you know,
Yeah.
it was a lot of things I didn't realize until now when I go back and look at it. And since doing the show, I've had a guest on named Darla Rodilia. She does a podcast called You Have the Power. And that's what she's talking about. She came on and her and I were talking about narcissism. And then we're talking about narcissistic ex, man. I had at least 15 more people tell me they had to stop halfway through the conversation because it hit home that hard. And that
Yeah.
right there says you did enough right there because if people are feeling it, then they understand it. And a lot of people can relate to this situation. And a lot of people don't want to admit to it though. You know, they're all like, oh, I'm trapped and things like that, you know. And it's just horrible, man. Because like my mental health was terrible. I had voice in the back of my head telling me I should kill myself, you know, and then I lost everything. Like when I say I lost everything, I was literally down to 3 boxes to my name. You know, I had nothing. I was in a hotel room. I was alone by myself all the time. And that thought just kept coming. And you know what? The one thing that saved me is the one thing you were talking about, faith itself, man. A girl that I knew, she got really big into religion. She was a little weird to me at first because, like, you know, I was still kind of like set off because I had a bad experience with somebody that made a
Yeah.
bad taste in my mouth of the whole religion situation.
Yeah.
And it was the first taste of God I had, really honestly, where I had an honest conversation where she knew something was wrong and she kept reading scripture to me. And I always thought it was weird, but that one time when I got to that moment, I was right on the edge. It was like he talked to me and said, "Don't. You have something more to do in this life. You won't understand yet, but it'll soon tell you." And it just came to me. And I just kept thinking about all the scriptures she kept reading to me. And I always thought it was really weird, but she would never give up. She'd bring the Bible. Dude, when I say she brought a Bible, she brought this big of a Bible and was reading it to me. And it's like she knew something that no one else knew. And it's like, you know, and that fast forward to now, like right before I start this show, I actually took faith on completely because when I was a kid, my mom never took us to church. Always gave us some excuse why we couldn't go because I was always like, man, why can't I go to church? I kind of want to know a little more, you know. And I think I adopted those ideas, the ideas of that when I got older, and then I had a bad religion experience with somebody that was like, oh, I forgot what she was saying exactly to me. Something about I'm sinning, everything I'm doing is sinning. It's like, you know, and I let everything else affect me instead of making my own decisions. But now that I've made the choice to talk to God and accept the faith and things like that, it's been great experience. I think everything in my life has gone to a different direction. Like, you know, I talk to him all the time. He's always listening. And I think that people give it a bad rap, but I think it's just because they're running into those type of people that are just force feeding it down them and things like that. And my thing is that, you know, ever since I've accepted faith, man, it's just everything fell into place. Like when this show started, I got picked up by a podcasting network that we're on right now. You know, the Oracle Talk Radio Network. They reached out to me and said, "Hey, I got a new network we're starting, new show." I had nothing recorded at this point, mind you, when this conversation was going on. I was like, okay, you know, why not? And I didn't realize it was a real conversation until, you know, I thought this was a joke at first because, you know, you get all these emails from people, things like that. So
Yeah. Yeah.
Tom had reached out to me, which is one of the founders, and he reached out to me. We were talking about it, man. And ever since then, it's just been, this show has just gone off the rails. Like the first 2 months, I was already out to the end of the year with people just for Mondays alone. And then I added the time slot that we're on now because they're like, yeah, you know, if you have nothing's on the schedule, you can go live on the show. Why not? I'm like, why not? Let's go for it. So then I added another one that shut off to the end of the year. Then come the middle of November, I'd set up one of those, you know, one of the little schedulers that I found out that they had. Like, God knows I didn't know anything about those until now. So
Yeah.
Dude, when I tell you that this thing blew up in 2 months, I was to July of this year already with people just filling in on Mondays and Tuesdays alone. And then at the beginning of the year is when I decided to open the books a little further. I was like, let's see what other conversations we can get into. And ever since then, it's been the greatest decision ever because it's so great. Because if you see it from the beginning to now, you see the evolution of Pete happen because like I
Yep.
discover who I am as a
Same with my
person,
show.
and every day I'm always talking to him and things like that. And then my wife had bought me a book. God, what is it now? I can't remember what it is. Something. I can't. It's like I'll have to figure out what it is and message you what it is. I can't think of what the book's called now, but she got me a book. But basically, it's like you read it every day. You're reading different passages every single day, and things like that. And it was so great because I've never been to church either. I went to church recently too. By the way, that was a great experience. Like I went to a Baptist church. Let me tell, dude, that was the greatest time ever, dude. Like it was like a rock concert in there. It was so great. The energy of the people, dude. It was fantastic, man. But and like I said, I think that if I had committed suicide, I don't think I would have been here, man. I don't think I would have had a chance to do any of this stuff. Like ever since the show started, I've got to do a Holocaust survivor panel. Like these are things I've never got to do until now. I've been invited to come on a bunch of the shows. One of them actually, Gretchen hosts. She goes at G-Rex, by the way. She has the show called what is it? The Shit That Goes on Your Head. She has almost 2 million downloads. Has invited me to come on the show too. So I'll have to wait till next year. But I mean, it's all these opportunities have come, and it was after I accepted faith because after that, it was like all of a sudden the idea of Pete versus anxiety just hit me. It's like, I battle my anxiety every single day. That's the name of the show, basically. So Pete versus anxiety. And as I go, I'm just educating myself more and more. But I get to meet different people, such as yourself and other people. And I take away stuff from all the conversations, and I network with other people, meet new people. So like I touch every subject possible and I love it, man. I think it's the greatest experience ever. You get to talk about these things, create the conversation that needs to be had. I think mental health should be talked about at younger ages, honestly. I think we should do it in the teen years, when they're really struggling with a lot of your emotions and things like that. And you're still trying to discover yourself. I've met some people are doing like life-changing things. They're trying to teach kids how to regulate their emotions as early as like 5 or 6, things like that. So there's a lot going on, man. And at first when I started looking up a podcast, I was trying to get an idea because I had one prior to this. So I just kind of fucking around with some friends. We're having a good time. And the conversations got a little too out of hand. You know what I mean? It's like, it just got a little too much. So I had to pull back. And if I hadn't, I wouldn't be doing this show now. I wouldn't have so much success I'm having with this show. I'm having a great time with this one, and things like that. But I think faith though, man, I think it scares a lot of people. I don't know why, man. Like, I don't get it. Like you can talk to him always. He always listens to you. He's never judging you. Don't let these other people fill your head with that nonsense crap of, oh, you're sinning, everything you're sinning. He's not just judging you. He's listening to everything you're saying. He's like a free therapist. You can talk to him all day. Tell him your most inner deep thoughts. He already knows. He's just waiting for you to admit it, and you won't be judged at all. Don't let these people fill your head with that nonsense. And all these social media people are preaching all these things. Oh, this is a sin. That's a sin. It's like, don't let all these people influence you, man. Like stop. Just think for yourself for once. It's not hard, guys. Just don't let these guys fill your head with crap that doesn't make any sense. Use a little more, logic and think about what people are actually saying to you. And the same thing goes with, with suicides. Like, check in on your friends every so often. If you notice them acting weird, saying weird things like, oh, I want to kill myself. It's not a joke. They're trying to tell you they need help and they need your help. Or they need somebody to notice that they need help. I don't know if you can contest that. I know you said you've had your own situations too.
Yeah, I've had to stop a few suicides, and it's very difficult to tell when someone's being serious or not. But a couple episodes ago, I had Damian Bloss on the show, and his friend had given some warning signs, and he didn't believe him, and then person committed suicide, and he dealt with that guilt for a long time. So it can be a very difficult decision. In the military, it's an even more difficult one. So it's definitely a conversation to be had. And I want to pivot to something I want to trace back to, which was talking about the launch of social media in the beginning when it first came out. And I'll share this. I've shared it on a couple other shows as well as my own show. The statistics, the correlation, or you could say causation, honestly, between suicide rates and social media's launch. So when you look at the launch of social media, and if you graph it out to the popularity and usage of it, the suicide rate in children, which for this particular statistics, they're about 8 to 10 years old to 25 when the brain starts developing, so all the way up to 25, kind of mirror that. They're kind of parallel to it, where since the launch of social media, you've seen it almost double to over, I forget now, but I want to say over 220,000 a year or
Jesus.
more with,
No.
and those are completed suicides with about 200 to 300 attempts per completed suicide. So if you multiply 220,000, about estimate, by 200 or 300, that's the number of attempts. And then you have to think for every attempt or self-harm, how many people were suicidal and didn't act on it, right? So what's interesting is just to kind of tie it back into men's mental health. If you look at the statistics from that 8 to 10-year-old range to 18, it's primarily young ladies, and it's primarily self-harm and attempts not completed.
Yeah.
Then from 18 to 25, it's completed in men. So if you look at the social dynamics of it, I characterize it as young ladies from, 10 to around that puberty age to 18. That's when they're struggling with their beauty, self-esteem,
Hmm.
girl drama in high school and middle school, and that kind of stuff, rebelling with their mom and parents. And that's when, and it's a big fighting time for attention. And this can go into 1920 college. But from that point onward, now they're on social media more, which they're on it on high school now, but they're in college or a job, and now they're going to bars and men are hitting on them and they're getting
Hmm.
attention from a lot of outside sources besides social media. And again, this happens in high school, but now they're, in a more advanced dating stage than in high school. And so it kind of flips to where also now they're being taken care of by a man, typically, or their parents are still taking care of them through college, right? And so you see that drop in the self-harm and suicide attempts. 18 to 25, you see a spike, and now it's men take the majority of suicide ideation and suicide attempts and completions, and it's mostly completed as men because from 18 to 25, that's when men who, this is again, they're technically children from 18 to 25 for suicide statistics. This is when life's hardest for them. They're just starting off. A lot of them, this is when they join the military, go to college,
Hmm.
or leave. I think a lot of them, compared to the young ladies, have less support from their parents. That's not always the case, but in general, less support, and they're on their own. They're struggling to make friends a lot of times, and they have a lot of responsibilities, finances, these expectations. It's the first time where, prior to that age, you could express your emotions to your parents. At least you were more vulnerable with them. Now you have no one. And then you see, of course, that and then they're taking care of a young lady some of the time, most of the time. They're now also taking care of a young lady. Sometimes they're having kids. And so you see this from, like 10-ish to 18, 20-ish, you have the young ladies and self-harm and self-esteem. And then from 20 or from 18 to 25, completed suicide from men, just from the responsibilities and transitioning to adulthood. And this is all in correlation with social media, because what does social media do? It drastically perpetuated the self-esteem issues with young women even worse, because young ladies were comparing to each other in high school. Maybe you could have outfits and makeups, distorting it. Now you have Photoshop, you have a lot of posed and staged images, you have unrealistic expectations. Plus, for both men and women, now you have the incorporation of pornographic content. Average
Hmm.
exposure age
Hmm.
is 9 years old. 8 to 9 years old is the average exposure age to that content now. Also perpetuating unrealistic expectations for manhood, for bosoms, for rears, for the sexual performance, as far as how long it is, how crazy it is, whatever else it may be that you're consuming, some of the way consent works and relationships work. So all of that is partnered with the social media, because social media is just PG porn, basically, if we're being honest here,
Yeah.
when it comes to some of the content we see, especially young women posting. And of course, I always get backlash from women on this, but I agree that men are at fault for this as well. We helped create this, when it comes to OnlyFans and other websites where you can purchase pornographic content. Men shouldn't be paying for that stuff, and women shouldn't be wanting to post it. And some of them have it for free. There are free OnlyFans out there. There or women who post near porn just on the regular social media page because they like the attention or they need the attention for other reasons. And I'm not saying that about all young women who post. I'm not saying we shouldn't post, but I'm saying when you look at how and why and what, those are all important questions tied to social media. But I just wanted to bring that up in relation to the suicidal ideation, to the suicides happening, not just suicide, but also anxiety, depression, declination of social skills. All of this is almost directly in correlation with the graphs and statistics for social media. And you had brought up the launch of it, and that's where it all starts around 2008-ish, I believe.
Yeah, and you think about it now, you have more reach too. Not only just
Mhm.
like back then, you had these phone calls, and then AOL Instant Messenger was the thing at the time. Now you have all these other things you can reach people, Snapchat.
And bullying.
Oh,
It says spread bullying as well.
yep, that's what I'm saying. It can do all these things that people can reach out and get them now. And I think that's what magnified it there as soon as it came into play. Now you have all these women posting these pictures because they like the attention, and then it's the younger girls are seeing these things, and then they're like thinking, this is what I want to do too. I want to be an Instagram model. And it's like, I think a lot of them don't think of the backside of what happens after that, because some of those people deal with a lot of shit going down the road. And I think one
Have
guy
you
really
seen that famous interview? Because I want to mention it if you haven't seen it. There was an OnlyFans model. I think she was a lawyer or doctor, very high paying job, quit, and she was interviewed on the what's his name, Morgan Pierce or something like that. And
no, I don't think
he
I've heard that
asked
one.
her,
Morgan Pierce, probably.
yeah, something like that. And he
Yeah.
was like, what about if you have children and they're gonna look back and say, my mom is a porn star or an OnlyFans model, and they're crying and they're upset, they're getting bullied at school by kids showing them pictures and stuff. She said they can cry in their Ferrari. That was her response. They can cry in a Ferrari.
What?
Um, so I think that is a very famous clip, and I think that was a great example tying back to what matters in this world, right? She values material things over her children's mental health in that case,
Yeah,
or basically
that's
saying the
ridiculous.
Ferrari will fix all their mental health issues, right?
Crying the Ferrari, they're getting bullied because you're posting half naked pictures, or you had them on there. And once you put things on the internet, it's there. That's it. You can't delete them. So people
Right.
are always getting backlash and having these things come back to haunt them. It's like, well, you should
Yeah.
have put it out there then. I mean,
Yeah. I saw a clip of a young boy who was being interviewed with his sister, who was like a porn actress, and they were like, "How do you feel about it? Like, did you know?" And he's like, "My friends watched it next to me on the bus ride at school, and they're like, look what your sister can do." And it was upsetting to him, scarring for him. And she's kind of just like, I mean, it's and there's plenty of these porn actresses who end up having
oh, the issues
children,
themselves, yeah.
a lot of them wear a cross necklace while doing it too, and say they're Christians, and that part really gets on my nerves. But that's a whole different
Yeah, no,
conversation.
I get you there. But I think that
Those
when
interviews.
it comes to porn, though, the addiction itself is an interesting conversation, because me and a gentleman by the name of GT Tan, he came on the show, and we were talking about that. He was saying that the more that it gets weirder the stronger the addiction gets, but the addiction's not what you would think
Correct.
it is. It's not somebody watching it every single day. And I think that was the craziest part of it, because a lot of people, when they say they're addicted, it's every single day, as you think is what they're doing, but no, they're hiding it, they're watching it, they're getting weirder stuff because they got to keep going. And then I think it's
So
a
downhill.
yeah,
It's a
it goes
downhill
downhill.
slope
It goes
path.
downhill. And it's like you start showing these to people. Like, I had friends that sent me pretty crazy stuff back in the day and things like that, of these different weird videos of just weird stuff you're finding on the internet. We all remember rotten.com and all these other weird sites you could go to see these just completely disgusting videos or pictures of things. We all thought it was hilarious to watch it, but we didn't realize, the things that it tells other people. They're all looking at these things thinking that this is how relationships should go, or like all
Right.
these TV shows. Like, I love those dating shows too, by the way. I'm a sucker for some of them, man. I can't
Yeah.
lie. Like, was that
I
one?
watch it almost unironically, or I watch it ironically, in a sense, like, I can't believe that people would say this and mean it and believe it. And
Yeah.
some of the shallowness it has exposed on the one I watched in particular involves popping balloons, if you don't
Yeah.
find love. And
Yeah,
sometimes
I've
it's
seen that one. Yeah,
so
that's an
shallow.
interesting one.
That's my favorite one. But I want to say, yeah, I've had a couple episodes on pornographic addiction, and like you said, for some people, it becomes business transactional. Some people, what it does do once you kind of open that door to something a little because you need to,
Yeah.
because you need to get something more intense, and then it opens the spectrum. That's why in communities that are more sexually immoral and have opened a lot of those doors, you see higher rates of rape, of sexual assault, of
Hmm.
unconsented behavior. I believe I've had some experts on my show talk about the amount of perpetrators who watched pornographic material in a high volume contributed to it, right? So I think it's an awful thing. And I think a lot of TV shows and movies are highly suggestive with their
Hmm.
jokes or references, which also encourages it. Again, almost the average age of exposure is 8 or 9 years old,
Yeah.
right? So the sooner you start it, the more likely you are to get addicted or to need it, like you said. And then a lot of people who end up watching a lot of pornographic material, they also have a higher rate of adultery. And some couples watch that stuff together, but I think it's not a good practice. I've had episodes on it, and it can really destroy and take over your life.
Yeah, because it
And
changes your perspective on how you look at things. A lot of that stuff's all played out, and then you got
yeah,
people trying to reenact that shit. And it's
yeah.
like these guys are trying to react, or these girls are wanting
And
to
a
react,
lot
and
of
it's
it
like
is
it's not reality,
gross
man.
or
Like
weird.
there's some weird
Yeah.
shit that goes on. You know what I
Leads
mean?
to
Like,
bestiality. It leads to the spread of diseases. It
mhm,
leads to a lot of unhealthy. The wages of sin are death. It's that simple. You
yeah,
know, sex was designed, one, as a reproductive function, and then two, to be an intimate thing and not turn into entertainment. That's not to
yeah,
say that sex isn't pleasurable. It's meant to be
exactly.
something enjoyed between you and your partner. But there's a lot of ways that has been significantly twisted.
Hmm.
And a lot of it is also subtly buried through all the memes online, through, again, the movies and the shows. And it's because it sells well. If we made a clip of this conversation right now and put it up against a clip of a woman and a horse, I can tell you which one's going to get a million likes and views and which one is going to get a couple. It's just
Yeah,
a couple of nukes. It's unfortunate because it's just how it is. It's what people want to consume because, like you said, you get hooked on it. Same with the dark humor over the
yeah.
years, how it's evolved. Or you were mentioning websites that I wasn't familiar with, but I know there was one that was just gore videos, and it was all
Hmm.
live footage of people getting their heads cut off or
Yeah.
hit by cars and burned alive
Yeah, you're
or
thinking like Faces
get
of Death, the
children.
little videotapes they had back in the 90s, the tapes you can watch where people's heads are getting chopped off, and this is the crazy ass shit that's going on. And we all thought it was always so cool to watch. At the same time, it probably wasn't a great idea for me watching this anyways, because that level of violence
Yeah,
starts desensitizing
yeah.
people.
Well, and
And
the video games too are getting more
oh god,
desensitizing to
yes.
violence, to pornographic suggestions,
Yeah,
or
Leisure Suit Larry was
it's
one of them.
marketing. It's
Notable.
it's
Yeah.
it's good marketing. Like I remember when Marvel Rivals came out. I haven't played it, but what was the number one thing being talked about? The female character design. That's a lot of game advertisements are like, even for mobile
Yeah.
app games, it's a half naked woman saying, "Oh, come play this game," and it's there's a lot of
I think
preying
that's why anime gets
on,
a lot of hate too, though, it's because they always talk about
yeah,
how like the
unnecessary fan service.
yeah, things like that, which I like anime, but I don't watch a lot of that, like big titty girls bouncing around kind of things. But they always have some kind of busty characters in a lot of these shows, and but their views are a little different than ours, obviously, the way they
Yeah,
do things. But it's not like I think a lot of it gets a really bad rap, but not all of it's the same way. There are some weird shit out there, that tentacle porn crap that's out there that one guy had started creating or something like that. It's just weird shit like that. Just it's
yeah.
just out there, and that
But you make a great point because, like, I'll speak from personal experience. Like, I didn't get into anime until junior year of high school or
yeah.
later. And then everyone in the Navy was watching it. A lot of military people watch it because there's a lot of great animes
Oh
out
yeah.
there that have
Mhm.
nothing to do with hentai or
Yeah.
pornographic content or suggested content. I've watched plenty of stuff that is wholesome, that is about military stuff, that is about action stuff, that is about other stuff. But I have also, in my youth, branched into a lot more romantic comedy stuff, which again, there's a lot of unnecessary fan service and a lot of, like you said, busty characters in it. Even now, I still struggle with when I see real life women. I think that they all have small racks because it's like compared to anime
Yeah.
women, the standard that was set for me
Yeah.
was like their minimum is like most normal women's maximum. Does that make
Yeah.
sense? Like,
Yeah, no, you're making perfect sense. Yeah. I
I'll
think a lot
put
of it
some
gets a
numbers
lot of
on it.
bad raps because people are like, oh, look at all the or what was it? Texas banned some of it because I didn't ever chase little girls. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, none of them is like that. Like, if anything, it's set in like if it's anything in a younger range, it's usually set with their in the proper time periods and the things like that, all set in the area of like some girl
Right.
going through a problem. That's it. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just
Right.
I just think
There
people
are
demonize it for
animes
no
that
reason.
have
But
lolitas, which are women who look
yeah,
like small girls, and typically they're vampires or fairies,
yeah,
because again, certain creators have opened a doorway for people to get into that, to like people who look like children, and then they provide more and more content for it, so it spreads. So it's really unfortunate, like you said. But it's like anything else, everything we've talked about: social media, faith, anime, books, writing, right? Even because we could get into the whole smut books conversation on that side of TikTok. All of it ties back to what are people creating, what are they putting out, and how are people consuming it? That's
yeah.
the big thing. Even with podcasts, like you kind of mentioned, there are some podcasts that have crazy out of pocket conversations and
Oh
don't pull
yeah,
back. You mentioned pulling back, right?
yeah,
There are ones that don't, and that's their whole gimmick. And so again, it all comes down to creators and consumers, and both of them have to do their part to not empower the other.
yeah,
So if we look at the OnlyFans girls situation, the men, the consumers, can't contribute to that by paying for it, and the women can't contribute by being creators.
yeah,
Same thing with the pornography, with the podcasting, with the writing, right? You have a responsibility to not put that stuff out there by creating, but an equal responsibility to not consume, therefore provide that incentive to continue to create.
yeah. Hold on, I'm gonna pull this comment up right now. Okay, so Coral Hart has just made a comment here. I was looking at it off screen for a second. It says, "I may have a different perspective. I'm a woman and a breast cancer survivor. Sorry to hear that, but I'm glad you made it through. I have a great book to recommend right after this comment. Pretty open minded." She says, "I'd never really had an issue with porn unless you're addicted and can't function without it. Magazines, even different kinds of relationships. However, I've aged and grown and had a life. I'm not saying those things are wrong, but there is a time and a place for them. But not everyone wants to see that, male or female. If that is what I want, I know where to." Yeah, she makes a good point. I mean,
Yeah. But that's the issue. A lot of it is just out there on social media, in
yeah,
television, in movies. And it's not always, like we said, exactly exposed parts, right? But there's a lot of unnecessary suggestion or nudity. There's plenty of shows I've watched, rated R movies, where suddenly someone's topless or flashes someone,
yeah,
and it was not necessary. Or again, um, borderline nudity on social media, and it's targeted. I'll tell you something. I have multiple social media accounts, all under different names, different age ranges, but all male. That some of them I've never used, or even my own Facebook for Couple O Nukes. I post about my episodes. I network with guests. That's it. I don't like stuff on it rarely. Automatically, because I am a young male, it will show me borderline pornographic material. It will show me women who have OnlyFans. It will show, that is what automatically fills my feed. And then I can change that. Obviously, I can go like posts about God and podcasts and this and that. But automatically, why was that the default? Just
yeah,
because I was a young male and this was my
yeah,
age range. Same with all my Instagram accounts that I run for both business and personal. Automatically, if I do not use one of those accounts, or I only post on them and I don't consume, the feed is automatically young women in their content. Why is it not automatically gym stuff or podcasting stuff or home
yeah,
decor? It's purposely, specifically targeted to perpetuate that and to get you pulled into the loop. At least that's been my experience with it. Again, all they have is age and gender, and boom, it's populated
that's all they get,
before
and
I've
then they
even clicked on
populate it, yeah.
anything. And even now, when I continue to like David Goggins, podcasting, gym stuff, faith stuff, women still pop up. And then all you need to do is if you like one of them or share one of them, now your whole feed's taken over, or it just becomes more and more common. And then it's so easy to just like stuff as you're scrolling through, and then it slowly just takes over. And again, I have a responsibility, just like anyone else, to not like or support that content if I don't want it in there. But even when I don't, it's still being thrown at me. So with the whole time and place for it, I think that's kind of part of what we're saying is we're not here to. I personally don't support porn, but in general, the conversation isn't saying like ban it, get rid of it, but we should have restrictions on it. So it's not just everyone getting it. We shouldn't. We're so adamant on not having children in pornographic material, but we don't control their exposure to it.
Yeah.
So we're saying we shouldn't sleep with children. We shouldn't have children in sexual content. Oh, but they can watch it. We don't check for age verification in most places. I mean, if that's their choice, that's their choice. You know, even though they're minorities, we shouldn't protect them from this content. Just like you said, but we have ratings on movies. Children aren't supposed to go see R-rated movies if they show nudity or violence or even profanity in language, yet they can go home and watch porn. Where there may be violence in that porn. There may be profane language in that porn. There may be a lot of unconsensual suggestions. So to me, that's very ironic.
It's very good points too. I think you have really good points with that too, though, because it's the language that's used as well, because it's all scripted. A lot of stuff scripted, a lot of stuff getting said. It's like, it's not normal. And then they think that's normal when it comes to get into a sexual relationship. Then they're using that same kind of tone and it's like, it's not like that. You know, we need, like you said, we need to start limiting how much of this they see, because I think we're giving them the wrong message. Like, you know, porn plays its part. Some people like to watch it together. Okay, cool. That's your thing. But don't let these kids see that, because they don't know what any better. And then they're going to go thinking that this is how they should treat women. And this is how and it's like, stop. It's like, stop showing them these things. You're like so worried about censoring everything but that. Age. You know, but they're trying to censor everything but that, though, Whiskey Man. You know what I'm saying? They're not even, they're like, oh, we're going to censor everything but that one topic. Oh, we're just going to let that come through. It doesn't matter. It's like,
right.
You got video game restrictions, everything else, all these other restrictions. You know,
they'll ban books. They'll ban books from public schools.
Yeah, exactly. That too.
Maybe having a racial slur in it or this or that. Yet they can watch pornographic content, and because they're getting exposed to it younger, they want to do it younger because they're being told it's this great, exciting thing. I know. I hate to say it, but a friend came to me one time. He was like, "Mr. Whiskey, my brother's in 5th grade, and he told me he had anal sex with a girl yesterday. What do I do?" Like, I was like, 5th grade. I don't even know what to tell you. I said, you got to talk to an expert about that. You got to talk to Dr. Phil about that one. You know, because I'm not qualified.
That's crazy though, because it's like you should ask him where he saw this, and you know, it's just it just blows your mind, man. It's like
they just say on the internet, online.
Yeah, I went online and searched it. Probably went on YouTube and saw all these different videos, or saw these, you know, it's different.
It's not always on purpose too. Sometimes they accidentally are just clicking on websites or scrolling through. And nowadays everything has a link to something else to it, you know, because I knew a young man who was just trying to research fitness and men's health. And he ended up going down this path of, you know, trying to find ideal body types for a man to have. And somehow it led him to gay porn, you know, so you never know where the rabbit hole is going to take you.
Yeah, that's true. You know, and I think when it comes to that too, a lot of people just start freaking. Oh my God, gay porn. It's like, it's porn in general. It doesn't matter. I don't give a fuck if it's a guy humping a guy, girl humping a girl. I don't care. The kids shouldn't be watching these things. They don't understand what they're looking at. You're giving them the wrong message. And, you know, and what does that say for their mindset? They're going to think that this is how sex should be portrayed. You know, and then they're, like you said, start fucking around early ages, start doing these things. And then they start having early pregnancies, and Teen Mom.
We can do it in public. I mean, this guy was doing it in his car with his girl in the porno, or they were doing it in the woods, or they were in a movie theater. It also doesn't give you the right idea. I've never watched porn, so I don't know if there's a disclaimer like don't do this at home or anything like that.
I don't think there has ever been a disclaimer at all, but you know, they still wouldn't understand what that is, because really think about it though. Well, think about it. Remember WWE early on, the wrestling program in the 90s, where it was so violent, they were telling people not to try these things at home. We're still going to try it at home. They tell you, me and my brother still do that shit at home. We wrestle all the time, you know, but I don't know, man. But it's just mind-boggling to me how we're allowing these things to funnel through, and then it's like, oh, woe is me, like with the chat things and games. Now they're finally cracking down, trying to ban people more often about things that are getting said. That's great and all, but we should have done this sooner. But I'm glad that we're moving towards that direction, because I myself had to go defend a little kid I don't even know. My wife was online playing, and this will be the last stop before we start closing out, is that this person started swearing at this little kid. Kid had to be like maybe 10 to 5 range, somewhere in between there, old enough that understands something that's getting said to him, but this guy's yelling at him because he sucks at the game. Oh, you're so terrible at the game. You so fucking sucks. My wife is telling me about these things, and I'm like, okay, cool. You like to pick on little kids? I got you. So I came home and messaged this guy. So, hey, I heard you like to swear at little kids. I bet it makes you feel good about yourself, huh? And I started coming at this guy, and he's like, what do you mean? I was like, I heard that you were swearing at this little kid. I heard you were calling him, telling me he sucks, telling him to go kill himself. Things like this were all getting said to this morning little kid. And I said, so it must make you feel good about yourself, huh? And then he was like getting all mad, trying to defend it. And I was just, I eventually got banned for making comment, but I was like, I'm not going to deal with this. You're going to start saying something to a little kid. Like, what the hell is wrong with you, dude? I'll take the ban all day, but it was worth it too, because I got this dude so upset. He started swearing at me. Oh, I'm going to call to your house. And I'm like, look, here's the address. Come on through. I'm like, I'm not scared of you. I'm not a little kid, bro, but don't be picking on these little kids, man. And
it's the division from the screen. It's the same thing with when people are driving or behind a phone screen, they lose all sense of humanity, because they can't always see the other person. And like, if you actually saw like the little kid, you probably feel ashamed of yourself. Like, oh shoot, this is like a 5-year-old kid. Like, what am I doing?
To kill himself too, Whiskey, man. It was just like,
that's messed up. And
I'm just like, that's so fucked up.
It's crazy. And we don't have time to talk about it, but also the rabbit hole of the AI sex chatbots and all that children have access to. Or I don't know about the restrictions on those as far as age verification, but where that's going to lead us to. That's a whole conversation for another day.
Definitely,
I'm gonna have you on my show, so you're good.
Hell yeah, we'll talk. Listen, we'll talk about it then. We'll talk about that there, and a couple other things were there for sure. Hell yeah, man. All right, guys, as we start wrapping up, this Whiskey, thanks so much for coming, man. This has been great. I enjoyed having you, dude. All the things I saw about you, I was researching. They all said the same thing. You're an interesting guy, and hell yeah, you're an interesting guy. Very factual. I loved all the statistics and everything else you brought to the table, man. Why don't you tell people where they can find you? Obviously, Couple O Nukes. How often do you release your episodes?
Yeah, so my show is normally daily. I missed the last 3 days. I was traveling, but normally it's bi-daily. So every other day. I'm trying to go daily, but it's a lot because and Pete, you already know how much work a podcast can be, especially when you're by yourself, running multiple social media pages. I have 941 unread emails right now, so it is a lot of work to get through. I've got like 20 messages on Podmatch to get through after this. So but coupleonukes.com, I always put that forward because it has everything you need to know about me, my bio, my social medias, and then I'm renovating it right now. But it
has, for you guys.
Yeah, I appreciate it. But it has, the way I have it is every episode and guests, they're broken up into different categories. So like I said at the very beginning, show is a resource hub where people can come improve their life. So if you like the suicidal prevention and awareness content, it's its own section. If you're like, hey, I'm just here for the gym, I got that section. If you're here for interesting stories, like Fred Ruttman died 50 times, brought back to life, I have him on there, so I have all kinds of different people.
Ooh, who's that? Wait, who's that? The guy died 50 times. See, I need to have him for sure. Is he on Podmatch?
Yes, he is. So
you have to send me his profile. You have to send me his profile for sure. I got to talk to this guy. I'm interested now, bro.
The Summer I Died 25 times, and then he died 25 more times. So he wrote a sequel. The Summer I Died another 25 times.
What? That's what's up.
Yeah, they kept bringing him back to life. God bless it. I've had Naked and Afraid 6-time champion on my show, and then I've had homeless veterans on my show. I've had drug addicts, recovered drug addicts, and alcoholics, pornographic addiction, all kinds of interesting people from around the world. Like you said, every day I'm learning and hosting and having conversations that are meant to impact, not millions of people shallowly, but the right person at the right time. I upload the episodes to God to take to the right people at the right time, whether I'm dead or alive. They're there for the right time and place, and his time and place. And so I recommend checking out the website to find maybe whatever episode speaks to you, or that is great for you to have in your back pocket for whoever might need it. Like a lot of the episodes I've had, They don't apply to me directly, but I have them for instant reference if someone needs it.
Yeah, definitely, man. I'll have to reference them for people too, man. I do the same thing, dude. I always reference other people when I'm in interviews and things like that. Hey, listen, my buddy
Mhm.
Mr. Whiskey's got this show. You need to check it out. If something falls in that category of what they're looking for, listen, he's got a whole section just on that for you right there. If you're interested in learning more, go check it out. Guys, go check out Mr. Whiskey for sure, man. Like, give him some love, man. He's been great. And things like that. It sounds like he's got a lot going on over there, man. He's got those 20 messages to get to.
Yeah.
No, listen, man, I agree, but it was great having you, bud. Like I said, I enjoyed having you here. I thought it was a great conversation. I definitely we can come back another time, figure something else. I have you come back with. We'll talk about some other random stuff. It doesn't matter, man. Who cares? I just enjoy having great guests like yourself come on, fellow hosts and things like that. We'll definitely have to network about some of these guests that you were telling me about because I for sure want to have them come on because I'm interested. But I'm at 5 days a week, by the way, right now, all the way out to October currently. So I've got a lot to go here, and I got a triple header next week again. I am doing a mental health panel that's coming out, guys. Hopefully next week, I think on the 23rd is when we're planning to do it, right around 1 p.m. I'm going to invite some people on. We're just going to have a conversation. And then going forward, we're going to have a conversation. So maybe we'll get Whiskey to come on with us, and come hang out with us and talk and things like that too. I'm sure he's down for it. He seems like he's ready for anything.
Oh, yeah.
All right, Mr. Whiskey, we're going to wrap up.
Me.
Definitely, brother. Well, I'm going to wrap up this episode of Pete vs. Anxiety, guys. As you know where to find me, I'm on X all the way down to TikTok. I'm on Spotify, all the way down to Heart Radio, guys. And I say it costs nothing, absolutely nothing to be kind to somebody. One kind act you can do can save somebody's life, or hell, you can make their day. I'm Pete vs. Anxiety saying, don't ask how your day is today. Say, hey, how's your mental health today?